And welcome back to the seventh and final episode of the Jimmy House podcast. Today, we have two very special guests, them of which being Wayne and Wyatt Rhodes. Which one is which?
Wayne Rhodes.
Wyatt Rhodes.
These two individuals are two very close friends of mine. They train at the same pro wrestling training center that I also go to under Dustin Rhodes, who happens to be their uncle. Another uncle of which some of you may know as Cody Rhodes. So, the cool thing about these two is that they're super brand new into the business. They're extremely natural, hence their family, and two of the most humble, deserving individuals that I've met since moving here to Austin, Texas, and honestly being a part of their journey so early on has been such a cool thing to see, from their start in the camp that they'll talk about to now being able to train them a little bit in the weight room, and then seeing their evolution as professional wrestlers and such a legendary family. It's actually a really cool thing to be a part of. So what I wanted to do today was be one of the first major interviews to interview these two before they break out into the mainstream and become worldwide renowned superstars. So I would love to just start off with you guys' general story. You guys obviously grew up together. How would you put together your childhood up until the day that you guys start at camp under Dustin? If you guys are interested in my one-on-one online coaching services, make sure to check out my coaching app where we can customize your workout, customize your nutrition for whatever specific goals that you need. We have a link down below in the show notes if you want to apply, and we can schedule a free consultation call with myself.
Well, we've always been very close, and that's what we take account into. And during our young childhood, we've always been around wrestling in general, so we've always been very knowing of what's going on. But also, we would wrestle each other as brothers should, and I think that's like a lot of childhood growing up. A lot of brothers fight, a lot of that, but ours was more playful in a sense of wrestling, which is great. And we grew up together, we played sports together. My dad was very fortunately to be our coach throughout all those years. And we've just always done things together as brothers, and going into this business is very exciting to be able to be together as one.
Yeah. Thanks for the intro, first of all. That's very special. From what he was saying, that's all true. But as you fast forward to high school, we did sports in high school, and he was a senior and I went to college, and basically he, after football, wanted to do something, athletic, and he wasn't doing baseball, so he thought, well, maybe, we could train at, our uncle's place.
Yeah.
It was always a thought, because we'd seen the showcases before, ours. And so he, asked me about it, and I was I wasn't really thinking about it, but it was, always in the back of my head, one day we might train, And he decided, if we're gonna do it, let's do it together. And basically, it's been over a year now, but it was January 2024 is when we started to start training, and we both went in, together, and it's just ever since then we started training. It's just been this cycle of just things coming up. And
honestly, you guys have improved quite quickly. Not because of your last name, but because of the work that you put in and how naturally you guys are in the ring. And every single time you guys get a really cool, unique opportunity, you guys excel past expectations. I think you guys had your YouTube match on the showcase, and then your first live match in front of the audience was an AEW dark match, yeah?
Correct.
That's right.
And to go from that, and considering, and what I'm gathering here is you guys weren't necessarily dead set on wrestling in your childhood, whereas I feel like a lot of people would probably assume that straight out the womb, you're going to be a wrestler, Wyatt and Wayne, that's probably the general assumption, but you guys didn't necessarily start really considering it until more recently in the last couple of years.
Right. Correct. That's right. And I think a lot of that stems from, when you're in a family like this, they don't want you to keep doing it. They really don't. It's just how it works, but they just know in the back of their head it's, most likely to happen. So our mom and dad never pushed us to go into the business, and really it was never a thought, because we just focused on baseball, basketball, and football. Those were our sports. Those were our things that we did. And it was never a thought as a young kid. But then as I got in high school, I thought, well, you know, I know football's not going to take me very far. I know baseball's not. So I was like, well, I love being active. So what do I want to do? And it's right in front of me. It's wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's what really stemmed it. And Mom, you know, not so enthusiastic about it, but she was still, as I said, you know, it's bound to happen kind of thing. So.
But even to this day, now she's super supportive of it still. She's at every single event. She's cheering you guys on.
All of our family's supportive of it.
Yeah.
But like he says, when they like didn't want us to, it's more of like, it's just a really hard business.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my grandfather like told, you know, his sons, it's like, he didn't, you know, it's a hard life.
Yeah.
And they're obviously in it and doing it. So they didn't listen to him. And he trained them and whatnot. But for us, it's like, they, you know, Dustin and Cody have told us like how hard it is, but it's, they know, like he said, that like if it's up, like we're gonna do it either way, and they're gonna be supportive of it, like of us, and they definitely have been. So very thankful.
One of the coolest things, and I think should be a part that's highlighted in your story, is when you first did that camp. And just for the viewers, the camp is essentially the equivalent of either a beginner's camp, people that want to get into pro wrestling, learn the ropes from somebody as prestigious as Dustin Rhodes, or you even have people that have been wrestling for over a decade. I know a handful of them, in fact, that want to be able to train at a school as prestigious as Dustin. So there's actually a wide variety of people that enter this camp. But for you guys in particular, I thought one of the coolest aspects of your story was the fact that when you guys entered camp, nobody touched on or nobody brought to light that you guys were actually in relation to Dustin until obviously the very, very end. Can you guys talk about that a little bit, and how, you know, obviously you probably come into it with really high expectations because you guys know that you're in relation to Dustin, but nobody else does. What's that like? What's your experience like? Can you walk us through the camp and what are your first takes of it? How you guys adjusted to it? You know, what your thoughts were during that process?
Well, Dustin didn't like say anything because he wanted us to be on the same level as everybody else, treated the same. He didn't want us getting like a special treatment of sorts, right?
Right.
And so, you know, we showed up when everybody else showed up. We did everything the same. We did all the same workouts. Nothing was different, and it didn't matter because we were going to work hard anyways. Mm-hmm. But it's like we're not going to just be there early and get to like one-on-one. Like we're learning with the other people, even though it's our uncle, right? Like people understand it's like, oh, they're probably going like after, or like, no, it's like we only like whatever he's saying, we're listening, and we're the same stuff as everybody else. And so that was a little strange, but it's like, again, it's like when you think of it, not a lot of people have family in the business. Like a lot of people like are learning strictly for the first time with no experience, and that's how we work. Mm-hmm. And we treat it like that, and we worked hard just as anybody else until they did eventually like say something at the end. And then people were like not surprised by it because it's like, okay, this is funny. Like we like we were doing all of like Cody and Dustin's moves, but we didn't know we were. Yeah. So I told Dustin, I was like, is this not like obvious if we're hitting all our, like he's okay with us hitting his moves, like hitting crossroads and stuff?
Everybody just thought you were big ones.
like 4 weeks in, we were having like practice matches, and we were just hitting like all these.
Is he okay with him hitting like the final red? Like nobody like said anything. I guess they thought we were just big fans. Dustin was like, he liked us, liking us or something. Yeah, that's funny. And then when they found out, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's really. And also like he looks a lot like him, and it's like, oh, that, or like like Cody or whatever people say. It's like that makes more sense to them. So. Mm-hmm. Okay,
that's hilarious because I think maybe like 4 weeks in, full disclaimer, we did kind of like get exposed somehow. I guess because people searched up like our regular names and whatever. I don't know. It somehow got out, and like I could tell like people started looking at us like when we were hitting those moves. And I was like, "What are you looking at? It's just Dustin's moves, right? That's why I'm at this school." But that whole process, man, was like it was so. I actually enjoyed not like having a name to it because there was also like a pressure that wasn't there at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Like I was just like living free, living well, and doing it for like full on fun, which I still am. But still, now there's like okay, now you have this name tied to you. You really have to show out. But that whole training process was great. I think everything we did about it, the way we went in with the name not being there, was the best way we could have done it. I mean, training, Training was brutal at first. I mean, some of those cardio things, it's no joke. It really is. But we kept going. We worked and worked and worked. And I don't take back anything. I think it was perfect the way it was executed. So it was very exciting times.
When you guys did the YouTube match, and that was obviously very successful, I remember when I first saw your guys' promo, it was very clear that you guys had very good direction and just a very natural talent for what pro wrestling is. Now, transferring that into a big stage immediately, like an AEW match, can you talk about some of the thoughts and experiences behind the scenes that led into that match and how you felt like the whole match went itself?
Yeah, I mean, I was nervous, I'll tell you that. That whole thing, and surprisingly, the whole build-up to that was no build-up. It was like, hey, tomorrow I want you on the show here at Arlington in Dallas.
Yeah.
And yes, we had gone there like 3 weeks ago and met Tony, and that's what really set it off. But we never thought, at no point, hey, we would actually be on that ring of wrestling, because it just didn't cross the mind. We just had our first match, you know. It was like, there's no way that we would go out there in front of those people. But sure enough, we're on a trip. We're in Florida at the beach, and Dustin's like, hey, when y'all drive back tomorrow, Tony wants y'all to be on the show. And we're like actually on the show?
That's awesome.
And it was like, my mom, was very about it, but it was said that it's a dark match. It was under the cameras. Not many people would see it except for the crowd. We said, we'll go for it. And we did, and that whole day was just like, I was just chomping at the bit. And then as soon as we, time went on, we stepped onto the ramp, which is, by the way, the coolest thing, going down the ramp. It just all faded away, and I just went into a dark tone mode. It was like the Matrix. It was so cool. It's awesome.
There's probably 700 or 800 people, I think, at the esports arena in Arlington, which for your first match, it's a lot of people.
Seriously,
right?
Especially with the arena itself, that in itself has kind of a mystique that is very very cool.
We came out to Summer Nights by Van Halen. It was our first song we get to choose.
Nice.
And so that when I hear that now, it's really special.
Yeah.
It'll always be special because that's the first song in front of a crowd we came out to. And the whole thing, we were very nervous about it. We knew we have to take this opportunity and we could do good. And it was okay. It was just 5 minutes or a little less, and it was just easy, simple, very simple. But they put us over, and it was Aaron Solo and John Cruz. Very very awesome to work with them, and it was just the crowd was it was very they were cheering. We got Outlaws chant and
Super
stuff.
cool.
It was very special, and everybody backstage, very nice things to say about us, and it was great, awesome experience.
Yeah, that's super awesome.
Yeah.
And now fast forward, you guys have done a handful of different shows. You guys are one of the main headliners of Dustin's shows. You guys are the premier tag team of the RWA, Rhodes Wrestling Association. So you have a little bit more experience under your belt. How would you now say where you guys are at in regards to your journey? How do you feel much more comfortable? Do you feel like you're starting to understand what's going on? How would you express your seasoning of experience since that AEW match now?
Well, I can tell you I'm a lot more confident, for one, and you know why, because this man right here, 2-time freaking world bodybuilding pro champion, has taught us how to get big and strong.
So close.
IFBB pro, you're the man. And he has literally put us on a journey besides wrestling and put us down a path that I had no idea how to work out or how to eat right, none of that. And ever since getting on the plane with him, it's been it's pretty perfect. I mean, everything has been good, the growth and everything. So transferring over to wrestling, I feel so much more confident. I got more meat on my bones, I got more muscle. It puts at first when I started, I was very small, no muscle, no weight, no nothing. So the confidence, wasn't really there because I could just get thrown around, and I wanted to be the one throwing people around kind of thing, right? Yeah. So the confidence comes with it, and also just from starting out to now, we haven't had a crazy amount of training because of school, but the amount of training we've had, it's definitely boosted our in-ring abilities, I think, a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that too at some point, but one of the biggest reasons why I'm so contingent on manifesting the fact that they will be world-renowned superstars is not because of their last name. It's actually because, in general for pro wrestlers, especially on the indie scene, from what I've gathered so far, it's actually very rare to see somebody take strength training and the work outside of the ring as seriously as they do the work inside of the ring. And this is something that you both have basically taken seriously since you guys started. Basically, like as soon as you guys finished the camp, you had that first match. I know you guys were looking for ways to get stronger, start having a diet, things that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds don't even start thinking about like until they're in their 40s. So you guys have adopted this level of discipline that's rare in general, but even more so rare, which is unfortunate amongst the majority of professional wrestlers outside of those at the highest level. So it's like these habits that you guys adopt as soon as you start, to me, are one of the main reasons why, this podcast is actually really cool, because it's quite literally their first interview in their road to superstar road, whatever. And so I like to talk about that a little bit, because in my experience of training with them, the implementation of technique in the weight room reflects that of which they pay attention to the implementation of technique in the ring, and there's a direct carryover to it. And I talk about this a lot with them when we're training. It's like, even though you guys haven't been lifting for that long, like a year, a little bit more. I know obviously you lifted a little bit with sports in high school, but as far as like a regimented, structured program, you guys are newer to that. And there's definitely been results that have been derived from that process. But the sooner that you can implement habits that are good in your lifestyle, whether it's your eating or your rest, your training, obviously within the weight room itself, you can expedite your process by being able to implement styles of lifting or technique so that you can make up for whatever lifting that you haven't done beforehand. Like, not everybody starts lifting when they're 5 like myself, but for these guys, the level of progress that they've made, and I want to say 5 or 6 months, has been outstanding from a strength standpoint, and then also from a muscle building standpoint. How important you guys find training in general, but the strength training and some of the mobility stuff that we do to be for you guys, like when you're translating it to the ring, especially talking to any professional wrestler that's watching this. The last thought that I have here is, if you want to do professional wrestling, even if you've been a lifelong fan, there's an element of strength training and athleticism and mobility and cardio and things like that aren't necessarily thought of when you step foot in the ring for the first time, and I think it should be. So you guys are a prime example of somebody that took it seriously in the ring from day one, and then also in the weight room from day one, and even from a diet perspective as well. So how important is that in your opinion? And what have you learned from your uncles, say for example, of how important the diet and the training is outside of it to be able to have a successful career?
Very important, first of all, like as far as the dieting and stuff outside of the career. I think one thing that's, you mentioned, when you're talking about the in-ring training, like people not like expecting the mobility and all these things like you need right when they first get in. I think it's like people think when you step in the ring, like you just get in and like you can just be like, you can just start doing it kind of thing, right? Like there's so much to it, like being strong, also being really agile, right? And keeping people safe is important too. Like if you're not, very mobile and strong, can't move around well, lift people, stretch certain, like you're gonna hurt others. The safety is so important within wrestling, right? People understand that, like the stuff we're doing, like it's very dangerous. And I think, the mobility, the strength training, all we're doing like outside of it is helping our bodies stay safer as far as like not getting us injured, because we're expecting just certain movements, right? And we're practicing those things outside of the ring.
Yeah.
And, I think just everything combined is just benefiting us as far as our skill and then like the shape that we're in, right? Yeah. I've had people mention like, outside of the ring, it's like, wow, like you're, the conditioning stuff I'm seeing, like in certain things I've done with other people, it's like, well, that's due to like the training I'm doing with you and also in ring, like together that creates like, it's like insane combo, right? So
literally, a lot of people say this, and I know it's true. He looks like Cody kind of thing, and I might look more like Dustin. But I can tell you, the genes of food and the way that our body reacts, he has the Cody, and
Yeah.
I guess I have the Dustin or Dusty, because I can put on weight so fast
Cody-
that it's kind of scary.
Cody is the same as like Dusty and
He is now. He wasn't when he was younger though. Cody was he wasn't as built. He was shredded, but not as built.
You can always phone people in if you want. Just kidding.
I mean,
he's at the Royal Rumble.
Oh yeah, he has something
today.
important.
I think he's got something important today.
or you could say he has my dad's side of the genes, or you could say that.
Yeah.
But still, it's kind of nerve-wracking when you can put on weight too fast. And it's almost a good combination. He is not small. He is good size. I might be the oversized one, but I think it works with the tag team, the way it is.
Yeah, no, I like it.
I like, when there's two same size built people, it's like, yeah, that's cool, but I think it's also cool when you can have a smaller individual and a bigger individual. It just shows maybe more athleticism. I'm not calling you small though, I swear. But I'm not that big. Still. But the way the diet has been really good. But when it comes to mobility, I think that's even more huge because I used to not be able to jump and split my legs. And when I first started camp, it was really hard for me to get up and jump over people in our certain 5x5 drills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now it's like a breeze. It's like get up, get down. Like that whole motion is just so much faster. Especially now, I feel like I can do the splits. I think I've said I need to test to that will, but I don't know. I gotta get warmed up for that, right? But it's been so good. I've really noticed it in the ring a lot. The mobility has been there, especially on when it comes to chaining. That's something you don't really think about. But when building my arms and stuff, the way I'm able to people get them behind my back, it just feels so much more loose, and I can get them back there, touch my hands, just general stuff like that.
That's so important.
Yeah.
I like the points that you touch on because strength training, when it comes, especially with professional wrestling, there's nothing wrong with it, but a lot of professional wrestlers, especially at the independent level, just don't have either a background of strength training or just not a lot of knowledge behind it. And so most people know that you need to be in shape to some degree, right? So stepping foot into the gym is just better than not entirely, 100%. But at the same time too, then there's a debate of styles of training and which ones are going to be the most applicable to something like professional wrestling. So you want to put muscle on for a couple of reasons. One, you want to look the part as best you can, right? But then also second to that, the more muscle you put on, the more theoretical armor that your body has and be able to be durable to last the sport. So that's huge. But also to that point, and this is actually something that Chad had brought up at practice the other day, which I liked a lot. I think it's when you mentioned it actually when you're talking about bodybuilding, and then he brought up old school bodybuilding. He was talking to a couple other people, and how that style of training, although very proven to work to build muscle, has some gaps in regards to professional wrestling that could potentially cause a hindrance down the road. Because let's say take old school bodybuilding for example. Generally, what people think about when you bring that up, and not everybody, it's not everybody. But partial range of motion, right? A lot of volume for specific muscle groups, but not necessarily working on mobility and movement and full range of motions and things like that. So nowadays, with the science approach or the new age style of bodybuilding, where full range of motion is a heavy emphasis, from a muscle building perspective, hypertrophy, that to me is the best way to approach hypertrophy training for wrestling. Always lifting in full range of motion. So when these guys are doing their presses, they're going all the way down past their chest with the dumbbells, getting a huge stretch across the pecs and the shoulders, and then pressing up. Anytime they're doing any sort of pulling movement, they're getting a huge round of the upper back, getting a stretch here and then pulling. Stuff like that. Squats and everything, obviously you're getting as much hip and knee flexion as you can. So now, with that said, pro wrestling has so many other elements. You got running, jumping, sprinting, you got falling. So that's where mobility in the joints and the hips and the shoulders, the neck, the core, all these different things are also important to add in, which is why we try to touch on these things, because it may not necessarily translate to how you look in the mirror if you're working at how strong your hips are and how well they can move, but also it'll also look so much better better in the ring when they're moving around, able to get in particular positions, and also just, again, make their bodies last the test of time because they're so durable. You know, with myself, I can speak from experience. I don't deal with a whole lot of injuries outside my knee or soreness from the wrestling training or the matches, simply just because I've been lifting since I was 5, so I have a lot of muscle mass to protect me from the nature of the sport, and that's what these guys are now in the process of doing for themselves, and I think it's great. You talk about different body types. Obviously, you're the more slender and leaner one of the two, but then also you put on weight and muscle a little bit quicker overall, right? And two, honestly, the two have pros and cons in itself. I think Wyatt's in a great situation because although he carries a little bit more body fat than Wayne, he puts on muscle quickly. So he has that ability to build up his baseline of a physique and his baseline of muscle. At the point where he gets a major opportunity, he can always cut that off really quickly. Putting on muscle is harder than taking off fat, generally speaking. But then for you, it's great because you kind of look stage or ring ready at any given point, but you're putting on muscle, you're getting stronger, so the weight that you are putting on, you can bet the majority of that is lean muscle mass, the type of muscle mass, or the mass rather, is gonna stay on and be with you for the rest of your career. So I think you guys are both in really cool situations where yours might be a little bit slower numerically, but you guys are both kind of striving towards the same goal, and by the time where you're leaned up and shredded, and you're as shredded as you are now, but like 10, 15 pounds bigger, it's gonna look really, really cool on TV.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
So, yeah.
I love the way you say that. I really hope one day that is, that can happen, because that's always been the ultimate goal for sure.
yeah,
To be freaking jacked like you.
I appreciate it.
What if I told you by watching this podcast, you could get one pass to unlock several gym memberships? Say what? That's right. With Rep Gym Pass and code HOUSESTRONG, you can save money on a gym pass that allows you to go to all the participating gyms on this singular app. And if you're a gym owner and want your gym to be a part of it, comment down below and I'll reach out and we can get you set up on Rep Gym Pass. Are you guys looking for a barefoot shoe that doesn't look like you're stealing from your grandmother's closet? Well, I have the solution for you. Use my code HOUSESTRONG at vivobarefoot.com if you want the best looking, best feeling, most versatile barefoot shoe on the market.
Yeah, and they're too humble to say it, which is great because I think they stand that path. But fans like myself and all you guys watching, I'm sure that you guys will look back on this interview and think about how cool it was to see where they started and where they'll end up in the next 5 to 10 years. So now transitioning, obviously the elephant in the room that we touched on about 5 times already is that you are the nephews of Dustin and Cody, grandsons of Dusty. What are some of the lessons that have been the most impactful to you in life in general, and then obviously specifically professional wrestling, that you guys find to be the most valuable, passed on by them?
Honestly, the way that Dustin, if you've done his camp, right, and you have, and I think everything that he says in his camp is something that's huge for me, because when you're in a family like this, you share your family with the world. It's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
You share your uncle with the rest of the world. You share your grandpa. It's just how it is. And a lot of things mix. The world is going to know the same lessons you know because your uncle's sharing it with them as well. It's just how it is. So the good thing about this is a lot of the lessons that Dustin has taught in his school is the same kind of things that we have. And they've stuck with me a lot. Like having passion, never giving up, all those things. Everything he said is the same stuff he would say to us, even as younger kids. So it's something that, carries on for sure, but it's really nice to see other people pick it up as well. Grandpa, unfortunately, a lot of those times I can't remember.
Yeah.
How
old were you when that happened? Don't mind asking.
Let's see, in 2015 when he passed. So that means I was, what?
It's not big on
Years
that.
ago. I was 8.
Yeah,
It's pretty good math.
Yeah, very young.
That was 10 year age.
Yeah, so knowing, anything before that was kind of hard to remember for me. I know there was little things along the way that I can remember, little stories, little stuff like that, but a lot of his promos are true, the way he put them out, even though it was, it's a character, but still, a character is so real. He connects to life and the human as an individual. That's just his character, the common man. So the cool thing again is everything he shared out there would be the same things he'd probably share with us. I'm sure there'd be a little more in there, but his character is really great. The way he taught lessons to everybody, not just us.
Yeah.
Well, Dustin says keep stepping, like that came from like our grandfather as well, and it's like, you know, one foot in front of the other, right? Like all the kids would say that too and stuff.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it just means to, you know, whatever dream you have, there's a way to get there, right? But you have to just keep, you know, you're gonna have setbacks, but you have to just keep going, work hard, and have the passion, like you said, to get there because it's possible. Like, you know, everybody has their own things they want to do, and you know, a lot of people don't get there. That's because it fades, right?
Yeah.
But if you keep that one goal in mind and the goal's ahead of you, you just have to keep stepping towards it. And I have something that's, you know, we're talking about life lessons or whatever. My grandpa, we do little fights and stuff, right, between us two. I remember he would tell me sometimes when he was when I was with him and we were together and we'd have a little fight or whatever, he would just the importance of me as the older brother to be there for him and to don't fight, but it's funny now because we're tag team, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be have a good connection, we're there for each other and stuff, so it's really special. You know.
That is really cool. I actually, that is true from my perspective. I remember asking you guys, do you guys ever fight or bicker or anything like that? Just because I've never actually seen any sort of negative energy towards one another.
Well, we try to be respectful around other people. Even if we were mad at each other and we're doing this right now, you wouldn't know it because we're gonna be professional and do this podcast.
Yeah.
We're not, so it's cool. But I can guarantee you we don't agree on a lot of things. And it's just how it is. It's how, if you have a brother, you know you don't agree on stuff.
Not perfect.
But you get through it and you work together, and that's what a tag team is, and that's what we are, even in real life. So it's great, and it's just cool to have a character like Dusty is the same as what you are. Dusty was a common man as well before a lot of the fame. So it's kind of cool to have the same character. Brotherly love is out there, but one day we'll break it and all. He never talks to me. But yeah, I'm very blessed and happy to be with my brother, even if we fight, even if we bicker. There is times, back then we used to wrestle, right? As young kids. I don't know if it's supposed to get out, I don't know if it's a secret, but we wrestled on trampoline and pulled our own little matches. So you
mean even after the WWE said don't try this at home?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, who didn't do that? Are you kidding me?
Oh please.
We were, mom was
just messing around.
Yeah, suplexes off the couch and everything. Yeah. Mom's bedroom, doing F5. So it's great, man. I'm really happy to be in this, especially with my brother.
Anything in particular that Cody has shed on you guys that has been impactful?
Well, recently we've been around him, got to experience backstage and around the WWE, and a lot of the things that he teaches us is within the business is what to say, what not to say, very specific things.
Yeah.
To let us know, right? And he tells us something recently. He was be students of the game as far as watching the product or whatever it is, watch everything. Even though you might not like it, to see what's happening, and be fans of other people around you, what they're doing. Don't just yourself, see your peers, everybody, what they're doing. That's really good advice. At shows, help out, be around. Just because you're in this family doesn't mean you can't just it shouldn't be a special thing. You should take down stuff. Watch everybody's matches, be involved. So I thought that was important.
That's cool.
Anything?
I see Cody as a little mini Dusty. I know he would hate to hear that. And Dustin was as well. it's the way that now he's so knowledgeable and so smart in so many different things that it's especially when you sit down, when you went to Dustin's training and you would sit down with these sessions, or Ricky was talking during these sessions, you're soaking this information in. You're holy cow, this is so good, everything he's saying, how do I remember it all?
Yeah.
You don't. And that's the thing, it's just they have so much stored in here, and it's so cool to see, because that's how Dusty was. He was so, to every younger generational talent, he was helped bringing up, and he was giving those same information. Now I see Dustin and Cody just like that.
Yeah.
They are literally the next promoters, stuff like that. That's just how I see it, because they're so knowledgeable and they care about the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Dustin wouldn't be doing school, or Cody wouldn't be doing school if they didn't care. And it's just so cool to see that. And Cody in particular is very, very knowledgeable. I mean, when we went to SmackDown is what we went, and we talked to him. I mean, he was telling us stuff about the business that was just like in the moment, I was like, okay, I feel like I should know this, I know that. But then after I realized, when I went back in my head, I was like, wow, this stuff really sinks in, and it really makes sense the way he's talking.
Yeah.
Because there was things that like even I would mess up backstage that I would have no idea. Like, there's certain stuff you live by as a wrestler. I didn't really know some of them, so it's really cool that he can teach us this as we're going into it, so that there's less mistakes later that we have to learn on our own. Like Cody learned.
Right, that's something you want to like get to. It's like before you get to that level, like as WWE, it's like the goal to be at that level. Like know before you get there, like the do's and don'ts and things. And so we're not like in the way of people. Like we want to make sure that like we represent our family very well, because it's very important to us. And I think it's special that Cody and Dustin both like support us and like want us to succeed with this. It means a lot.
Yeah, it's so cool to see. Yeah, I really enjoyed even just seeing the picture that you guys took at the last SmackDown.
Yeah.
I was excited to show Claire and Matt and everything. Like everybody here is cheering you on. And this is actually a pretty decent transition too. So I had Jacob Henry on the podcast last before you guys. So I asked him a similar question. So I have this very odd talent where I seem to attract the offspring or younger family members of famous wrestlers. I don't know why it is that way. It just is what it is. Maya Lesnar, Gage Goldberg, Jacob Henry, Garrett Borden, the son of Sting, obviously you guys being the nephews of Dustin and Cody. But the commonality between all of you guys, some of you guys want to be in wrestling, some of you don't, but the commonality between all of you guys is that A, you guys are far past your years, so being 18, 20, you guys are as mature as any 30, 40, 50-year-old I've ever met, number one. And number two, there's a sense of humility that I've only ever really seen amongst people in your position. Now, I'm sure there's outliers where certain people might get spoiled and have some sort of a attitude that's not appreciated amongst other people, but between these two boys and Jacob and Gage and Maya and Garrett, like the way they handle themselves and the amount of humility, respect, kindness, and care for others is something that maybe your typical fan wouldn't expect out of somebody in their position. So I know you guys are super humble, so it's kind of hard to talk about from your own perspective, but why do you think you guys choose to present yourself in that way when it's very easy to let things go to your head and come off cocky, arrogant, entitled, so on and so forth? I'm trying to say all this because you very easily could go in a different direction, but you guys actively choose on a daily basis to present yourselves as fine human beings, very helpful to those around you, very loving, caring, and also very dedicated towards your goals, like having the right amount of selfishness, but also being selfless in the right positions as well. I think is very admirable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It means a lot, and I don't know if words can say this enough, but I do for sure. I really want this a lot, and I think if you really want something that bad, and if you want to be good at something, you can't go into, even with a name, you can't go into it with the mindset of like, hey, I'm gonna be better than everybody else. This is not how it works. We're not the freaking golden child right now. We're nowhere near being like our full potential. And it's really great to hear that the things you say that we're above Excel stuff for our age. That means a lot. I don't see it as much yet, but I'm excited for the day that it really does show off. But we're nowhere near. And even if you had a mindset of like, hey, I'm better than you or something like that, just because I have a family name, I just don't. Just doesn't make any sense to me, because we're all people, we're all the same, we all have the same mindset, and we also want different goals and things. You can't hit on different people for wanting something else. But the full range of that story is that it really is something we want. Well, at least I want. I'm sure you want it as well. But the really reason I do is because I want to be with my brother, and not many jobs allow you to do that. And this job, it's fun, and I would love to have fun with my brother for the rest of my life. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
I think just how we're like our parents raised us is like a huge.
That's exactly where I wanted to go to next, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, like that kind of like why we like that is like your question. Well, I think how we were raised, like our parents, like the best parents that raised us very well. Like that's them, and then the people we were like surrounded by, the friends I have now that I've had since school. Like we both surround ourselves with people that like we knew were gonna like better ourselves.
Yeah.
We weren't gonna go down paths we weren't supposed to. And our parents like made sure that as well. And then also the Rhodes family, like we have to like represent them in a good way, and that's not possible being, disrespectful and getting into trouble, and like especially now our name is out there at this point, so like the more and more we get into the business and the more we are out there, if we do something wrong, I mean it's seen, people see that,
Right.
and you can't do that. So especially with social media, there's cameras, phones, everything's everywhere. So you have to always be your best on always. I mean, it's hard not to be.
I also think too that even though, yes, it's true, you guys have to be on your best behavior because there is more of a spotlight on you,
Right.
that it's all very genuine. So you guys also don't have to try all that hard. Just be yourselves, and that kind of takes care of the rest, And I think having you guys at RWA, like being a part of the team, actually does a lot for a lot of the younger or more inexperienced people, because as leaders in that room, you guys choosing to be the way that you are sets the example, sets the standard for everybody else to follow, because if you guys chose to act a different way, that like nearly opens the door to where people want to follow in your footsteps. There's a lot of people there that look up to you guys, and you guys choosing to act the way you do, very professional, very kind, very respectful, also teaches the younger, less experienced people also how they should act in the business, and it creates a very healthy environment. Personally, the practices have been just amazing. I think it comes down to the amount of just good-hearted, respectful, very caring people that are all really there to get each other better and support each other regardless of where they're at in their particular wrestling journey. It's actually really cool, and you guys are a huge part of that. Now, to your point, we talked about their grandfather and their uncles and everything, but I think two of the underdogs in the story that need more light shed on them is obviously their parents, because obviously your parents, your mom and dad, would have had the most direct connection to you guys growing up from day one to where you guys are at now. I've met your dad once, I've met your mom multiple times, both very kind, respectful, very loving human beings, and those around them, especially you guys. Now, with your parents, how would you accredit your journey and your success now to the lessons that they taught you throughout childhood up into adulthood?
Well, they've taught us so many lessons. It's hard to just like talk about certain
Maybe
things.
how about what's one thing about your dad and what's one thing about your mom that sticks out to you that you've been able to model after?
Well, that's very easy. So my dad would be strength, like always told us to be strong. As we got out of the truck or went anywhere, it's like be strong about whatever we're doing. My mom would be love. It's like caring, sharing love for others. So like that together creates like how we are today. And like exactly what you're saying, those two things are like the most important things that they both. It's just amazing. Like they're just been so awesome. Like, and they're so supportive of us.
Yeah.
With like whatever we're gonna do, it doesn't matter. But within wrestling, it's like okay, if they're gonna do this, like. We'll support them.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, we're real lucky because I can tell you what, we were raised spoiled, rotten, and in a good way. But I'm really blessed that I was able to be raised in the way that I was, have the assets and the things that I did, and to have the parents that cared about my future. That's all that matters, right? And that's the one thing that goes through me is my parents caring about my future only makes me want to have a better future for my kids and make sure they have a good future. So that's just one of those things, it's like we got real lucky to be in such a blessed family. And my parents, sadly on the road, your uncles, your grandpa, you don't see them that much.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I got to see my mom and dad every day.
Yep.
Really. And the cool thing is that my dad was always involved. Childhood sports. He was our baseball coach all the way till we were 14, 15, till we went to high school. this man put all of his time into us.
That's a good point. Like
And my mom.
as like a coach and somebody, like they're also, if they're not around you at the house, they're around you in sports too. It's like you're getting the lessons like always from like your parents. Like they're involved so much with you,
Yeah.
which can be a bad thing if you know they're not showing the right messages. But like our parents were good about that. So
Yeah, no, I love that. And honestly, I experienced a very similar childhood, and having that type of impact and connection early on for a long period of time is so important. And the fact that you guys have that and are taking advantage of it, to me, is a huge reason why you guys are the way you are and are going to get to where you're going to get to. Especially, again, you have so many great mentor figures around you, your uncles, your grandfather, your parents, and your coaches. You do so much to put effort and energy and invest the right amount of attention into those people so that you guys can benefit. And I know exactly where you guys are going. You're going to be in a position not too long from now to be able to pass on those lessons and everything like that to the next generation, being your kids or the next generation of people at Dustin's school or your own school or whatever the case may be. But it's in your blood to learn and pass on.
Right. Yeah.
And to me, Arnold's 7 or however many keys to success, the last one is to give back. And to me, that's so true, because you can't truly be successful in my eyes until, yes, you've reached some sort of a pinnacle, whatever that is defined you, but then you get yourself into a position to where you can give back freely and want to help the next person or people that are trying to get into that same position. Like that's like the evolution of life right there. It's really cool, and you guys are going to be in that position at some point very soon. Only a few more things I really want to touch on, some more lighthearted things. Besides your family, talk about some of your favorite wrestlers that you watched growing up that maybe you even gotten a chance to meet, or at least model yourself after in your own training.
That's hard. That's really hard, because my family is the biggest inspiration in my whole thing, and it really is, because still now I'll go back and watch Dustin, like old school wrestling, and I love it. It's the greatest thing ever, and I think it's the coolest thing. Like, if I had to name, when I was younger, I loved watching like Brock Lesnar. I mean, come on, who did it? I mean, he was a powerhouse coming in. I was like, man, this guy. We had little mini matches. I was coming out to his theme song, just stuff like that. It's hilarious.
Brock Lesnar's great.
I mean, I just like a big, strong guy, because that was something I saw in my head one day that I would love to be, a big, strong guy, you know? So, probably, I hate to name drop like that, because I don't know, like, I feel like there's other good ones just to be naming, right? But Brock Lesnar's a great one.
it's hard because like it's hard for us to, like, we don't really have a lot of like favorites as far as like other people, because we just like only really watch like our family.
Yeah,
So we got better about watching stuff now. When we were little, it wasn't really like watching every week as fans necessarily. So it's a little different than other people because we weren't involved with it.
I like that, because that kind of makes you guys unique. For example, like with Jacob, he had his dad obviously, but he was a huge CM Punk fan. He's been watching wrestling his whole life. He's really, really been invested to it.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Like, again, you guys living a normal life for the most part until you got into the wrestling more just recently, to know that like you've seen a lot of your family stuff, but not necessarily as much of like everybody else, which
Really
is
not, yeah.
cool, because most people again would think that you've been immersed in this since coming out of the
Right. Yeah. It's more of just we've been so much sports, music and all this other stuff we do, hobbies we have, being out, just kind of more like country, like ranch stuff that we've grown up around, like not being, around the TV as much in general as kids. We were outside a lot.
No social media.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't have like any social
Yeah,
media.
you guys didn't have social media until the camp.
Last year.
No,
It hasn't been a year since I've had social media.
YouTube and stuff, right? But it's like, we've created wrestling accounts for things as far as social media, but yeah, that's hard because I'm sure if you ask us that in a few years, we'll have other mentors and people in the business.
Yeah.
But as of now, it's only been QT and like Chad, Eric, like those guys like outside of Dustin and Cody and their schools have helped us. But then it's like other than that, it's like we haven't trained with anybody else. It's very limited right now. So I think if you give us a couple years or so, our answers we'll have different answers about stuff, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's always much cooler to watch somebody after you've had a personal connection with them, and now you're just like really just rooted for their success, in every respect. I never necessarily was a huge Kofi Kingston fan growing up. Always respected what he could do.
Yeah.
But then after having a personal connection with him since moving to Austin, like it's so cool to see him on TV and just be able to do what he does. So I completely understand what
that
you're
is
talking
cool.
about.
Yeah, like you meet certain people, and you see their work, and it's like you know them as you see somebody and you're like you don't know as a person how they are. Like they could be really good on TV, but like you meet them and they're not a good person or something.
Yeah.
It's like once you know them as a person, you like know who they are, then it just like you root for them, like you said on TV, and make you like love to see them and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
I guess it's like the same thing. Like Van Halen's like greatest band of all time. It really is. And if I met Eddie Van Halen, because he is the greatest guitarist of all time, I would be like starstruck. I really would. You know, if he was still alive and I met him right now, I would be like, wow, this is like out of life experience, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's how wrestling fans are, you know, kind of thing. Because you want to be like that person. You see yourself in them or something like that. Because we're musicians, and I would love to be a rock star, an 80s rock star, like really. But
we'll hope to mix the two.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I can see that.
Be the biggest tag team musicians, or like you know some wrestlers have bands, but like be the biggest like musicians that are wrestlers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Have you ever talked about how you got into Goldberg?
Yeah, probably more times than I should. That's why I'm losing.
Well, I think it's special to like talk about like the impact like our family has on fans, because we've seen it recently. Like you know, little kids love Cody, right? For example, and like this one girl, we were at the show. Like he came up and we were just kind of standing there, and like she's like freaking out. She wanted to get a picture, and like she didn't get the picture. It's kind of blurry, and I saw it. And I like felt like I was bad. I was like, oh my gosh, like she like really wanted to be in. It was like really special. And I told Cody about it. And I was like, when you go back out there, because he does a loop around, I was like, look for the girl, whatever,
That's cool.
and see her. I don't know if he did, but like, because we left, but I told him specifically, like, she wanted to like really meet you. She was near us. It's like when you watch CBC or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's really sweet. So if we ever get to that point, I hope that we can, you know, have a connection with like, especially kids. I love that. Like, RWA, like seeing the kids, like we have our cousins there and their friends.
Yeah.
It's really special. Like I love that so much.
I saw a video on TikTok actually of Cody. There's this kid. He's called like World Wrestling Kid or something. He's his account or something like that. And I think I don't know how he gets in like backstage or whatever he does, but he had like a sign that says like Cody Rhodes and you follow me on TikTok or whatever. And then Cody did, and then I was like, how many is he following on TikTok? And it's like 2 people, one of them's him. I'm like, damn, that's cool. I appreciate that a lot. That's really cool to see.
That's also on that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, Goldberg for me, I've talked about it a million different times, but he's one of those where you hear the saying, don't meet your heroes. And I had been just idolizing him for 20 some odd years before I met him.
Yeah.
And just thank God that he turned out to be everything that he was and more off camera, and has still continued to prove to be in that position for me to this day. Like my first match back after the knee injury, he had called me that day, remember that I had a match, and like gave me this pep talk. I was crying the whole time on the phone, but he couldn't tell, but it was super special.
So special.
Yeah, man, it's like one of those things I appreciate. It's one of those things where it's just like, the wrestling world says whatever they want, but coming from somebody that genuinely knows the person as an individual and sees the acts that he does for the people that are people that he loves and everything, it's why a lot of the wrestlers at least give him credit for how good of a person he is. You know what I mean? Because it's true. He's a really, really good guy. And so that type of impact that you guys have had from your family, like I'd have to relate that to Goldberg at the very least for me, because I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for him.
Exactly.
My moveset wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for him. You know?
Yeah.
And that's why we do this, is we do it for the younger generation. It's true. Like you do it for the kids in a way, because you just, even like some kids, you know, experience hard lives coming up, and that's just how it is. So when they turn on the TV, it all else fades, and they just watch. You see your favorite wrestler come on, and you see yourself in them. You see your character, like their character as yourself, and you're like, hey, this is so cool. That's just how it is. That's why we do it.
That's it. That's what keeps people coming back. Like people have their day jobs, boring jobs, whatever they don't like, but they get to come watch wrestling. You know, there's so much for it right now. That's why I don't understand like the hate for everything. It's like you have opportunities for different companies right now, like all this wrestling. It's like it's such a great time. You know, it's exciting.
Here's a thought-provoking question. It's very early on in your lives to ask something like this, but I'm sure the answer will evolve as you get older. But have you guys been able to determine what your purpose is in life?
Well, like a basic thing for us it's really hard to specifically talk about.
Mhm.
But to entertain others, whatever we do, is like our purpose specifically. And that's what we like as little kids, like always like to entertain, whether it's like music. I'm in the film business right now, learning things, and it's like, you know, you got wrestling, like it's all entertainment.
Yeah.
So that's my purpose specifically, but for both of us, I'm sure it's kind of the same.
That's pretty.
As a basic thing,
No,
not
that's good.
anything in depth, but it's to entertain others.
Yeah, I always like to act out. I always like to do like little magic shows, just stuff like that for other people. I was always a service to other humans. I always want other humans to feel something when I was around them. You know, whether it be happiness or joy, whatever it was. So I guess maybe it is entertainment. I love to entertain others, and that's my purpose.
Love it. Good. No, I think that's spot on. I think it's going to continue to evolve. The more and more you guys learn about yourselves, and the more and more you guys just learn about life in general. So it's cool because are you still 18 or 19 now?
I'm
18 and 20.
21.
21. Okay, 18 and 21. To be able to have like any sort of answer is rare, and that's just going to continue to build and build and build. It's going to start to mean more to you. So it's cool to see where it is now, and then have Chris Van Vliet ask you the same, Chris Van Vliet ask you the same question in 5 years, and just see how it evolves.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So
That'll be you. We'll be on this podcast.
I'll do the next one. Yeah. So last couple questions. For aspiring pro wrestlers, people that are new, want to start, people that want to get into it, like 2 things of what your best advice is when you get into a school or when you first start.
Well, if you're in this area, you should go to Dustin's school.
Austin, Texas is the area.
Yeah, it's in Leander specifically.
Yep.
I think one piece of advice would be to just keep going, because it hurts a lot at first, but it gets better.
Yeah.
Because people quit when it really hurts, but it gets better. Your body gets more used to it. You just have to get through the beginning stages of things where it's like hurts a lot, and then in a way it doesn't hurt anymore. Like it does, but like you're used to it, if that makes sense.
I would say like when you come in, we got lucky with the character being how it just worked out. But I've seen a lot of other people through the camps have a character, not know what they want to do with their character. Don't worry, because time will work itself out and your character will come to life. I've seen characters start out as something, this, that, and they evolve, and then boom, they find it. And even if that doesn't click, it'll click one day. I think give yourself time with character. I thought when we first came in that we were going to have to know it right away. You really don't. We got lucky because it's just how it set out for us. But I've seen others, and I think if you're worried about your character, don't. It'll work out.
I have one thing that's big. Do not try to start doing all these moves you see on TV and stuff before you can learn how to do an arm drag or even rolls or do bumps. The basic stuff needs to be done first before you advance to get all that down. Like it's just your footwork is so important. And it keeps everybody else safe, before you start doing moves to other people. Like even just a suplex, it's scary at first when you've never done it, because you're lifting somebody else and you could just let them go and they land on their head and break their neck.
Yeah.
Balance is huge too. That's another thing.
Well, it goes with your training.
Yes, balance is huge. I didn't have a lot of balance when I first came in. Like we'd be doing simple rope jump ups, or even just when we did up and overs, my arms were weak doing those when I first started, and I noticed that literally. And so after getting into the training, I mean everything balance is a big thing too. When you're holding someone up, stalling suplex, I did with Ricky the other night. I did it's probably because he's such a good base, right?
Yeah, both people though for sure.
But still, I felt so comfortable walking around the whole ring, holding someone up with their feet in the air. So just stuff like that is super cool. I love it.
From what you guys know about pro wrestling schools, obviously you started at a really good one, but I have asked this to people that do jiu-jitsu about jiu-jitsu schools and people in pro wrestling about pro wrestling schools. Let's break it down to 2 since you guys are newer, but 2 green flags and 2 potential red flags of pro wrestling schools for people to look out for. One of the funnier ones that my coach from Arizona had touched on, he was like, well, one red flag would be if they don't have a roof. I'm like, oh, or a ring.
Okay, well, yeah.
A roof or a ring. I'm like, that's a good point. That's a good red flag.
Green flag would be the person's training, what is their background? Understand, know who this person is. It's not just some random Joe trainer. Who is this guy? Because who are you learning from? If you've never done it before, you want to have some of the best to learn from. That's another one.
Red
can say a lot of red flags. Like, yeah, like no roof or no ring. Or like make sure it's actually professional wrestling and not wrestling.
Yeah.
If you look at wrestling, it's like, oh, this is the ring wrestling. This is like mat wrestling.
Maybe it's like if it's dark outside, you get in your freaking Honda Accord and you start driving to the address for the first time, and it starts taking you through like back roads and trees, and you don't know where you're going. You show up to like a garage that's closed and no lights out. Yeah, that's a red flag. I'd leave. I'd get out of there. I don't think that's a training facility. I don't know. I mean, like, if the ring is bumpy, that's like, that would be terrible. So I would guess
a good ring.
Yeah, I mean that's huge.
So there's all different types. I mean, Dustin has the best rings literally that anybody I've ever seen.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Green flags. I mean, if you walk in and you see 2 rings, I guess that's pretty cool. Well, it's pretty nice.
Success of the school, like where are the talent that like who has been there and where are they now?
Yeah.
Some schools have pictures of like where like these people that are in the big companies now. So that would be one thing. Like who's trained here, right? Like that's a huge one. So,
Yeah.
I feel like my answer will come better when I go to more training.
Yeah,
because I've really only been to like 1 or 2.
It's interesting because I figure you guys haven't been asked this before, so it's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good question. And like Dustin's would be a place like my question doesn't really apply or my answer because it's been so new. So nobody from like 10 years from now, you know, half the school could be in different companies and like have their things up on the wall. But it's just very new. It's like 3 or 4 years?
I think,
About?
I think it started right after COVID or something like that. Something like,
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's all good points. For me, from my jiu-jitsu experience, I've experienced bad schools, I've experienced good schools. I think some of the easier red flags to just look for, and this can take a little bit to kind of see what the culture is like, but culture, number one, you know, you put yourself in a room with the same people on a week-to-week basis, and you can start to tell pretty quickly what the culture's like, what are the expectations like, stuff like that. Like if you're gonna put yourself in something as dangerous as pro wrestling, at the very least do yourself the due diligence of making sure that you are with credible people, both training partners and also a trainer. And then 2, make sure that the culture itself is a healthy environment. I see it in jiu-jitsu schools all the time, and I've experienced it myself, where if the jiu-jitsu culture and the environment is just toxic and unhealthy, that can take a lot of really, really good people and start to bring out the worst in them. And it affects your performance in wrestling, it can affect overall safety. And then the last thing would be just if there's no prioritization of safety, that's a huge red flag, obviously, you know? So.
Or if you walk in and there's like a sweet, young, kind woman like Terrell Rhodes greeting you, you know you're going into a good school, right?
Takes it serious, for sure. 100%. 2 things that you're grateful for, and 1 thing that you're chasing right now in this moment. Last question.
Grateful for, gonna be multiple things.
Yeah.
I would say relationship with God, family, and then the people I'm around, like at the school, my friends, and then chasing for being at the top of the wrestling business with my brother.
100%. Love it.
I'm grateful for my family, like he said, including my brother, my parents, my uncles, my grandpa. And I'm also
I just thought of another question after this. Go ahead.
And I'm also grateful for the opportunity we have given, like having put in front of us.
The Emmons families.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're excited to be able to chase that and go down this route of like craziness, because it is, the business is insane. And I'm excited to just, you know, I'm chasing that stardom, like he said, but I'm also chasing that so other people can tag along in my journey, kind of thing. I want them to feel what I feel. Is that weird?
Love it.
I want you to follow me. No, I don't know.
No, that's great. Perfect. Okay, last question, because you maybe thought of it.
Okay.
What has your brother and what has your brother done, taught, impacted you by that resonates with you the most to this day?
I would say
Don't kiss.
Hey, whoa. Maybe be like more open-minded, because I mean I still am. I'm kind of hard-headed. Like if he says something and it's like, and I don't agree with it, I just don't agree with it. I'll argue my way until like there's no way of not agreeing with it. I don't know. I think, but I've kind of, I guess maybe I'll loosened up more. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I'm still the same. But I think just be more open-minded. Even if I don't agree with them in the back of my mind or something like that, I kind of don't show it to him, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe he is right, but I'm not going to show it to him because, I don't know. Let's help you. But
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you have to top it. So.
I don't want to say that.
Well, learning from people, younger than you is a big thing. It's like, or listening to people like your younger brother. You think you might know everything as being the older brother, but you can learn some stuff from people below you and like younger than you and stuff. Well, not even below me. But like, it's important to me to like teach him like the experiences I've had, like in college, or like the things that I've had, like 2.5 years older than him. It's like I want him to like be better or like learn from those things to where like he's at my age, he's like better than I am at this moment, right? Like he's not there yet, obviously. So it's like he's got another 2.5 years, and I'll be like wiser in my own right. But, yeah,
this is great. No, I love it. That was perfect answers. Good stuff, guys. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being a part of the episode. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the kind words and that.
Thank you. Yes,
awesome.
It means a lot. You've
Yes,
done a lot for us, a lot, and I mean it. And even if like the words don't describe it, I think we are. That
you will continue to do more for us as well.
I'm honored, guys. No, truly. Thank you guys for the opportunity to be somewhat of an impact, but also, again, to be able to shed your story on the platform itself. Truly honored. Truly appreciate you guys. You guys are outstanding individuals climbing towards the top, and we'll check back in 5 to 10 years to see exactly how close that they are. But until then, Jimmy House, Wyatt and Wayne Rhodes, the 7th episode of the Jimmy House podcast has concluded. We're about to head to the gym. Stay tuned for that. Jimmy House, the Rhodes, out.
And that's going to conclude another episode of the Jimmy House podcast. If you guys have any questions that you want featured on future shows, make sure to put them down below. And until then, if you guys could keep liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, it would mean the world to us. The more this channel grows, the more we can provide the content that you guys love to listen to. Until next time, thank you as always. Jimmy House, out.